Good morning, people. Today we have a very interesting talk for you by our friend Bea Vickers, and she will title of her talk today is Dialectics and Christianity. Bea, whenever you're ready.
Hello, hi, good to meet you all. Thank you so much for introducing me. So I think I'm here because I'm a very old friend of Mary's daughter. So it's great to meet you. And in my slides, I've got a bit of introduction about myself. Please chip in and tell me about your own experience and knowledge. That'd be really, really helpful. Sorry, my son has picked this moment to walk in.
Shut up.
Do you have to?
I don't want to get my doctor notes.
Sorry, excuse me. Go on then, go quickly. Son. Right, I'm just going to screen share. Here we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. Excellent. Sorry. Sam, they're in the other cupboard. I'm really for doing this up there. Okay. All right. There's loads of shoes out there. Right, okay, so my title is Dialectics and Mindfulness, because I don't know, it just seemed like interesting concepts really, and Mary and Patsy thought that it'd be good to talk about what's new in mental health. So I'm just going to start the slideshow and hang on, here we go. Right, sorry, they're very unfancy. I've taken all the borders and everything off because I'm not at work. Right, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a consultant psychiatrist in an adolescent outreach team. So I work with teenagers aged 12 to 18. I work in inner city London. We cover 5 boroughs, which is a really big geographical area. And I'll just tell you very, very briefly about my own career. So I guess a lot of you obviously will be familiar with how it goes, but first you go to medical school, and that's how I met Mary's daughter, Julia. And then you do 6 years of undergraduate studying. Then I did a year of medicine and surgery. Then you specialise, so you could specialise in surgery or being a GP or medicine or whatever. So I specialised then in psychiatry. So I did 5 years of psychiatry. Then I did 3 years of child psychiatry. And now I've been a consultant for 22 years. So it's a really long training, basically. So I wanted to talk a bit about the difference between being a doctor and being a therapist. Excuse me just a minute, what are you trying to get at? They're in the other cupboard. Yeah, they're in that cupboard on the floor. Yeah. So being a doctor allows you to prescribe, which is obviously a really, really useful skill. And it allows you to have studied the whole body and to understand about drugs and the sort of physical effect on, on your liver and your kidneys and the effect of using medication. But if you're a child psychiatrist, it's also really useful to be able to do therapy. And so following my training, I did a diploma in cognitive behaviour therapy at Oxford University. And then subsequent to that, I've trained in dialectical behaviour therapy, which is DBT. I just wanted to ask you, Ray, what type of therapies did you use when you were working in the school?
Basically, I had a great interest in the therapist Eric Byrne.
Right.
So I used a kind of a theory of that, but along with other training which I had, which was in environmental therapy and other sorts of things, which was because I did my degree in psychology and then went on and trained in as a house parent, and then went to Sussex University for a while to do courses in non-verbal communication and aberrant behaviour.
Wow, Interesting. Is there anyone else here who has experience of, I don't know, working with young people or different therapeutic styles? Just, it's good to know about the audience before I, completely put my foot in it, really. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Hattie, yeah, go on.
Well, I've been a GP, so I've had the medical training, but I took a couple of years out and I did a counselling diploma, having done a short counselling introduction at an evening class. And so the diploma was from CSCT, Central School of Counselling and Therapy. And the theory year was incredibly wide-ranging. We learned about all sorts of kinds of therapy. And then the practical year, we had to see clients and do so many hours and have supervision. I had supervision from a psychiatrist, actually, who was very eclectic psychiatrist, and I was very glad of it. And then, of course, used a lot of my knowledge in general practice. And I said the most difficult days were when I had 4 new people with serious depression. 4 in one day. Huh, new.
Yeah, really.
And the knowledge has helped me and myself, I think. I've had a lot of therapy myself. One was psychoanalytic, and I could say that was worth the bin. I'm not happy with that. I paid thousands and thousands for it and felt trapped. I now have some dance and movement therapy every 3 or 4 weeks, which I find very valuable because of the body involvement.
Wow, thank you for that. That's really professional and personal. So I really appreciate that. Interesting. Oh, it seems like a really interesting group. Anyone else had any experience, professional, personal, otherwise? Gordon?
Well, rather a weird background. I never wanted to be a teacher, and in fact taught from my 30s right beyond retirement age. I reckon I've taught every age between 6 and 70, and from basic literacy through to open university teaching. And I didn't feel most of that time in teaching, state teaching, was at all satisfactory. It's an absurd worldview that we present to particularly adolescents. And eventually I ended up teaching in a Steiner school where I took children from 6 to 13 practically all day, every day, and got to know the children extremely well. And part of the philosophy behind what I was doing led me on to making an issue of the evolution of consciousness. How we go from, the age we don't know about, prehistory, through to the modern changes in consciousness that we can observe through language. I could go on and on and on, and that's just to say that. I did have a spell of getting into depression so that I could have psychoanalytic work done with it, which I found a certain value, and certainly it taught me a lot about listening, basically.
Bit of a addendum to what Hattie said. Oh, that's interesting. It sounds like Gordon and Ray, you've been on your own personal journeys through teaching, really, and working with young people. Wow. Anyone else? I'm just realizing you're a very interesting group. Mary, do you want to? I know you, so I know something about your own background in social care. I don't know if you want to say anything about that or not.
I think I'd rather not, because I feel I need to prepare something sensible to give to. So I'd rather listen to you. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, go on, Patsy.
Well, I will own up to a few years teaching reluctant adolescents, and later on, less reluctant adolescents in the university. But teaching was never something that I felt was my thing. I really didn't. I used to have to work very hard in the background because I was very anxious, and then I would find that a typical session, I would be talking about something completely different than what I prepared. All in all, I was very thankful to be able to back out and just do the occasional presentation.
What did you teach?
Well, when it was in school, English, and then at university, it was medical sociology.
All right.
I did my research area was women's alcohol use and its treatment.
Wow. That's how Julia and I met. We did medical sociology together. Wow. Oh. Anyone else? Okay. I'll carry on then. That was really interesting. So do chip in. So I think I need to pitch this talk pretty high now that I know who I'm talking to. Right. Okay. So as obviously Hattie has just told us, so being a doctor is very different from being a therapist. So I did quite a lot of further training because I knew that I wanted to work with teenagers. Right, so now I'm going to tell you two different aspects of this kind of new therapy that's called DBT. And when you go away from here, you can tell people that you've learnt like a brand new therapy. So it's all very hot and exciting. And yes, it does come from America, but we won't hold that against it. So a lot of you definitely, Hattie, and probably most of you would have heard of cognitive behavior therapy, which is CBT, which of itself evolved, I guess, from the psychoanalytic model that a couple of you have mentioned, but it's now probably the most respected therapy, I would say, in the sense that it has the most evidence to prove that it works. But there's a group of patients or clients for whom traditional CBT and therapy hasn't worked, and that's people who have long-term suicidality or long-term issues with self-harm or personality disorders. So I guess your kind of client group that you mentioned, Hattie, where you have 4 people with depression that you see on one day, obviously depression is a treatable biological disorder, but sometimes it becomes so wrapped up with somebody's personality that it can go on for years and years and years, and it becomes something kind of more than just depression, if you like. So DBT is the therapy that's kind of evolved to help these people, I guess. And so what I personally have been doing for the last 10 years, since 2013, is working mainly with young women with long-term issues of self-harm, with what's called borderline personality disorders. So in terms of what it actually consists of, it's a weekly one-to-one session, and then it's a weekly group. So it's like this, and I've run it from here. So I'd be sitting in the same place, but instead of you nice Quaker people, I would have lots of young teenage girls on the screen and their parents. But the parents would come in their own right, and we'd try and get them to come on a different screen. So I might have, I don't know, let's say 7 adolescents, which is 14 people. And then there'd also be a co-therapist working with me. And what I'm going to tell you about today is 2 of the skills that we teach people. So the group sessions are designed as skill training sessions, and they're set up like evening classes. Like if you were to want to learn, French or knitting, or I don't know, how to cook vegan food or something like that. So they're very kind of quite didactic. They're just teaching information. Whereas obviously the individual therapy session is much more individual, obviously, and structured to, like, you've learned the skills at the group on Tuesday. Now it's Thursday. How are you going to use those skills in your daily life? How are you going to apply it? How are you going to help it solve these problems that you've got? So usually DBT is about a year, and the outcomes are really excellent. So I believe that it's saving a lot of lives, basically. So first I have to teach you what a dialectic is. I don't know, some of you might know already just from your general knowledge and reading. So it's not really a therapy term at all. It's a term from ancient Greece. And as so many of our terms are from ancient Greece, aren't they? And it's the idea that 2 apparent opposites can both have some truth in them. So for instance, it could be true that I was nervous about coming to speak to you this morning and I was excited about meeting you. Or in terms of our young clients, you might agree with somebody and say, yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult going back to school. You haven't been at school for 6 months, and I do believe you can do it. So it can help people who have a tendency to see things as very black and white and very rigid. It can help them to kind of be more flexible, really. Other dialectics in therapy that are really, really pertinent are the idea that if you're working with a patient, you'd want to convey to them that you accept them fully the way they are, that everything that they've brought to the session so far, you completely accept them and respect them, and you want them to change, which might seem like two kind of opposites. Or you might say that you are going to have quite a lot of structure in your session, like hopefully this talk is going to be quite structured, and you're going to be collaborative, so I'm going to keep stopping and asking for your input. So it's going to be those two things that might seem like opposites. So just for a bit of light relief, because I know you're Quakers, I myself go to church, I go to Church of England. I spotted when I gave this talk during COVID, I gave it to my own church because we were meeting online like this. I spotted that there are a lot of dialectics in the Bible. So I thought I would ask you if you could think of any situations or ideas that come up in the Bible that look like opposites, but actually both are true, if you understand that, if I've explained that adequately. So I'm going to ask you, any thoughts? You look like you're nodding, Ray.
I was just amused that that Quakers and reading the Bible. It's sometimes they read. We have a book in Friends which is called Quaker Faith and Practice, which is kind of nearly the Quaker Bible, okay. which is a slightly different thing. Maybe other friends will disagree with me there, but
Okay. Thank you for the education. Excuse my ignorance. Would that mean that you wouldn't particularly read the Bible then?
No, friends read the Bible quite a lot.
Oh, okay. All right, good. I'm glad I got that right. I did do a bit of research before I came. I thought, is it okay to talk about the Bible? And people were like, yes, it's okay. Hattie, go
on. Isn't the biggest contradiction that Christ died on the cross for us, and so there he is, dying and then rising from the dead, and I think we're meant to believe that all this was about saving our souls or something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's got to be the biggest dialectic on earth, hasn't it? That somebody can be both dead and alive at the same time. I don't think it gets much more extreme than that. Yeah, I completely agree. What I'm going to try and do is draw that just to make the session a little bit more interesting, and to keep spelling dialects correctly.
David's got something to say as well, I think.
Okay, I'm just going to draw some lines here. Let me just draw what Hattie said, and then right. You can all see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This will do, I think, if you don't mind me just putting it a bit briefly, Hattie. There we go. That's definitely a dialectic. Great. Any more for any more? Who did you say, sorry, Patsy?
No, I don't. Sorry.
I think David.
David, go on. Oh, David, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Maybe that was good. That was too good. As I was saying, there's the obvious one that God is love and loving, but seems to have a thing about smiting people as well.
Definitely in the Old Testament, there's a lot of smiting, isn't there? How do I put that? How do we go? Smoked people?
Vengeful, perhaps.
Yeah, that's good.
Vengeful?
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be here as a religious person, but I can't help myself. I'm going to put in the Old Testament. Yeah, definitely.
I suppose when God's full of all the different range of emotions like that, it's almost like a parent, you know, who's supposed to be there for us.
So how do we express that as a dialectic?
Well, I think you have the love and the
okay. You
vengeful
mean
thing.
this?
I think I'm
Oh,
seeing.
all right.
It's,
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, yeah, that's probably a massive digression, but that's my understanding as well. Otherwise, we'd just throw away the whole Old Testament. Yeah, I don't know. Should we do one more? Any other thoughts about dialectics in the Bible? I think there are quite a lot in Jesus's teaching, maybe.
Well, the business of Mary being a virgin and having a child has caused some problems for people in the past.
Yeah, you see, if only they'd known about dialectical philosophy, it would have been fine for them, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's a really good one. Brilliant. So I really just, if you weren't a Quaker group, if you were a different group, I would choose examples from, I don't know, from science or whatever, but as this is the thing that you have in common, I just thought we could choose dialectics in the Bible. But really, I just want to illustrate the point that a dialectic is something where two things appear to be opposite, but they can both be true. And hopefully that makes sense to you in terms of therapy. And those of you who have worked with teenagers, which turns out to be about half the group, will probably be familiar with how you can get really kind of polarized if you're working with a young person kind of quite quickly. I can see that you're nodding, Ray. So that, you know, I don't know, I just off the top of my head, like a young man might say to you, you know, but my dad just wants me to be like him, you know, he wants me to do, you know, be exactly like him, and he's a banker and I don't want to do that. And, you know, you might, instead of just getting caught up with that, you might want to say to him, well, you know, maybe your dad wants you to have the good attributes that he's had and the, you know, good things from his life, and he respects you for being yourself. Or, you know, you constantly be wanting to work to both and rather than either or. Anyway, so that's a dialectic. So I challenge you to use it in your day for the rest of the day, the whole idea of dialectics, because I find like once you've got hold of it, you can't stop using the word. I just find it a really, really helpful concept. So carrying on with the presentation, moving on from the Bible. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is the other sort of cornerstone of this new therapy, which is dialectical behavior therapy, is the concept of mindfulness. And my guess is that definitely Hattie and probably most of you have heard of mindfulness, because I think it's misrepresented quite a lot in the sort of, I don't know, sort of left-wing press. And I'm going to try and teach you a bit about what it actually is rather than what people think it is. So if you were a group of teenagers, I'd start off sort of saying, do you ever feel like your mind is controlling you rather than you controlling your mind? Do you find that you're sometimes doing and saying things that you don't even notice, or maybe you're texting one person while you're talking to the other, or you're, you know, trying to listen to this talk on Zoom, but then there's part of you thinking, have I fed the cat, and what am I going to be doing later, and how long is she going to talk for? And so you're being driven by emotion, or you're being highly distracted. In DBT, we teach that there's 3 cups of mind, and I'm going to draw this out for you, so hopefully it will make sense. So DBT, I should just say the idea of mindfulness comes from Zen philosophy. So the person who invented DBT, which is an American psychologist called Marsha Linehan, drew some of her ideas from Greek philosophy, some from Zen philosophy, and then sort of added it to CBT. Anyway, so she says that there's 3 types of states of mind. One is emotion mind. So when we're in emotion mind is, I don't know if you've been in emotion mind recently, but it's when you just think with that, you're just completely ruled by emotion. So like you feel really overwhelmed. So I don't know, just now when my son came in and he wanted his shoes, even though I told him 3 hours ago he could get his shoes, I had a sort of surge of anger, and just for a minute I just felt like my emotion was in charge. Reasonable mind is sort of when you're just very detached, you're just thinking in terms of numbers and statistics, you know, you're making all your decisions in a very kind of clinical kind of cut off kind of way. And wise mind is the best of both worlds, so where you're considering both emotion and reason. So I'm just going to stop this a second and draw that out for you. Hopefully it'll make sense. We'll get rid of our dialectics. So I think the easiest way to understand this is like this. So if you have, whoops, I'm not very good at drawing circles. Really not good at drawing circles. So over here you might have emotion mind. And then over here you'd have rational or reasonable mind. And then what DBT says is like the combination of both of them here in the middle is wise mind. And the idea is, especially if you're about to make an important decision, you should try and get yourself into wise mind. So you're not being wholly driven by your emotions, but you're not wholly detached from thinking about, well, actually, what are the pros and cons about this in a rational kind of way. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Right. So there we go. That's the 3 states of mind. So mindfulness in DBT teaches this reasonable mind, emotional mind, and wise mind. So I like what in reasonable mind is what you think is true, emotional mind is what you feel is true, and wise mind is what you know to be true. And I wonder if there's parallels in our own faith as well. I'm not going to ask you about that, but I'm sure it isn't a concept that's sort of unique to Buddhist philosophy, but it's quite a nice way of describing it, I think, being in wise mind. You know when you're in wise mind, I think. With hindsight, you think, yeah, that was a wise mind decision. So the purpose of mindfulness is to get you into a state of wise mind in a way, and being more aware of your present moment. So what you're thinking at this moment, what you're feeling, what your sensations are, without trying to judge it or without trying to change it. Mindfulness also means staying focused, doing one thing at a time and not multitasking. The idea is that mindfulness can give you more choices and more control, and it can reduce your suffering, actually increase your pleasure, make you more effective, and give you what's called a life worth living. That's in capitals.
Can you leave that slide on for a moment?
Yeah.
There's a lot on it.
There's a lot on this slide. Yeah. So I was going to talk to it a bit. So I don't know if you've ever, I don't know, this is a bit of a teenage example, but hopefully it applies to us as well. I don't know if you've ever thought, oh, I've got a really tough week, but when I get to Friday, I'm going to meet my friends and I'm going to have a really nice cold beer, and it'll be the end of the week. And then finally Friday comes and you're sitting down, you're having your beer with your friends. But instead of enjoying the beer, you're thinking, oh my days, that week was so tough. And then you're thinking, and next week's going to be just as hard. And when I finish this beer, I've got all the way home to go. And then you think, well, how many calories are there in a beer? And then you think, should I even be drinking this? Do I deserve it? How expensive is it? And then the beer's over. And the thing that you really look forward to, you haven't enjoyed it at all, because you weren't mindful and you weren't really present because of all these thoughts and worries and criticisms and doubts that have been coming into your head. Can anyone relate to that at all?
Yep.
Yes. Could you could anybody give me an example of noticing that, I don't know, they've missed something that they were looking forward to, that they were hoping to enjoy, and then it was over and they hadn't really appreciated it? Jude told me that some of you have grandchildren, and I wonder if there's any parallels there, like you might really, really look forward to spending time with them, and then if you're not mindful, it's over and it's happened. I don't know.
I just find myself going around the house and, oh, that's half done. Oh, that's half done. Oh my goodness, that needs tidying up. I haven't completed that task. Very, very messy at the moment. I'm dibbing and dobbing everywhere.
Dibbing and dobbing. And what sort of, how does that leave you feeling when you notice all those things?
Oh, annoyed and uncomfortable, really. I mean, it is the situation at the moment, and I'm sure it'll change, but ugh.
So I guess DBT would say you kind of have a choice. Like, you could either just radically accept that and go, it is what it is, and there we are, I'm noticing all these piles of half done things, that's where I'm at the moment, I'm just going to live with that. or you could like mindfully choose one and really focus on that and try and change it. Obviously, that's not for me to tell you, but that would be the sort of DBT approach. But
a friend of mine had invited us, a number of friends, around her garden, which was blooming lovely, as the phrase goes. And we was all sitting there with glasses of wine and all that type of thing. She said, and it was lovely for you to come, you know, to see the garden and all this lot. And 5 minutes after, she said, that needs to be done. That needs to be done over there. And if I don't do that very soon, that's going to happen, you know. And she said it was a bit unfortunate, really, because she did want us to come around and have a good time, but she kept on thinking, you know, I need to do this, that, and the other thing, you know. And she spent about 10 minutes in the garden before going off and doing other things, which was
that's a really good example. So rather than, you know, being able to just be in wise mind and just enjoy her garden, it sounds like she was unable, and it's understandable, but she was unable to stop her mind from having all these thoughts coming in about, oh, that's not good enough, that's not good, and it kind of really spoiled her enjoyment.
Yeah.
Don't we do that?
A really good example. Yeah.
When does mindfulness tip over into OCD?
Is that you, Mary? So I would say that they are completely different ideas, really. So OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder is kind of the opposite of mindfulness in a way. It's sort of where you're having lots and lots of intrusive thoughts. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much the opposite of being mindful. So you might be having lots of intrusive thoughts that something isn't clean or ordered or straight or just right. And obviously it's a really severe disorder. It's extremely distressing. People who have OCD are really disabled by it. And it would be extremely challenging, I think, for somebody with OCD to practice mindfulness, but it might be one of your goals. I don't think I would kind of force somebody with severe OCD straight in there to practice mindfulness, but certainly I'm going to do a mindfulness exercise with you guys in a minute. And I think if you did have OCD, it might help you to start to think, well, these are the areas that I really need help with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so those are some of the reasons why we should practice mindfulness. So I'm going to talk a bit about 3 different ways to get into wise mind, and then I'm going to get us to try one of them, which will hopefully be good fun. So to get into wise mind, there are 3 ways. I'm going to start with a third, which is the easiest. So I don't know if you've watched young children playing, but they're basically in wise mind. So if you fully participate in something, you fully throw yourself into a game. I mean, you were already talking about movement therapy, Hattie, and I wonder if that has a component of this, that you just are so fully participating that it's not possible to think about anything else. I do quite a lot of sport, and I find that that is a really good way for me to be mindful, especially if it's quite fast and it's just for an hour, I don't think about anything else. So, but it doesn't have to be physical. It could be, I don't know, a game of, you know, rummy or a game of poker or something like that, or fully watching a film, fully participating in reading a book. And as you are in it, fully immersed in it, without really necessarily meaning to be, you find that you are actually being fully mindful because you're not thinking about anything else. So that's probably the easiest way for most people to enter into wise mind, is to participate in something fully. Another way is sort of mindful observing. So like the easiest thing is, you know, when you watch fish in an aquarium, you just kind of watch them and you don't really have any thoughts about it. You don't have any judgments. You don't necessarily think, oh, that's a fat fish, that's a skinny fish, that's a yellow fish, that's a blue fish. They're just fish. And you just got to watch them, and you're just kind of present in observing them. A more sophisticated way of that is to watch on the inside, as it were, and notice oh, now I'm thinking that. Now I'm feeling that. Oh, now I'm thinking that. And not try and not think that. Just notice yourself thinking and feeling different things. And then the third way of sort of being in wise mind is to try and describe something, like just describe it in as much detail in your mind as possible. For instance, I don't know if any of you watch MasterChef or Bake Off, but when they have people describing the food, they go, oh, this chocolate is, you know, has the characteristics of chalk and sand, and it has a hint of cherry with coffee notes, or they use these kind of really insanely like elaborate descriptions. So that's what I want us to have a quick go at now. So I don't know if any of you have access to any kind of natural object. I did send Patsy an email about this, but I don't know if you're able to find it. So I'd like you to, if it's not too much trouble, find a stone or a twig or a leaf or anything, especially if it's in your room and you don't have to go too far. I'm lucky because I'm sitting next to quite a large plant. Is it possible for you to find something?
Would a dog do?
Would a dog?
A dog do? Yes.
Yeah, I guess a dog could go. Yeah,
Okay.
David's got a nice stone. Yeah, yeah, we'll have a dog. It's definitely a living object. Yeah. Gordon, do you have access to anything that's not
too many things.
too many things?
Yes, I've got a pair of biro in front of me.
A biro?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously you can take it, you know, do it a complex thing or an easy thing. Aha, interesting. Okay, so I think we're just going to branch out from
Given to me by a small child.
perfect. Okay, so I think we're branching out from, I started off with living objects, but obviously biros are not living. So I think we'll just go with object, just any object, basically. Okay, right. So what I would like you to do for a minute, that's all, just for 60 seconds, I want you to just observe and describe your object. So I want you to look at it. Just give me a minute to explain it before we get started. Use any senses that are appropriate. You can smell it. Obviously with dog, you can cuddle it, touch it, smell it, taste it, maybe not. Listen to it. Just use all your senses. If it's primarily something like a biro, obviously it's going to be mainly your sight. And I want you to try and put words to that. Try and say, oh, you know, what color is it? What texture is it? What, you know, just really focus on describing it. Maybe as if you were describing it to somebody who's blind or who's not able to share your experience. And if you get other thoughts coming into you that aren't anything to do with your object, don't be cross with yourself. Just go, oh, I'm having a lot of thoughts today. That's fine. Just bring yourself gently back to the object. And I'm going to get a bit of feedback on the sort of process of it. So we're going to start now for a minute, starting now. Right, that's our minute. So if it's okay, if I could just take a bit of feedback, but on the sort of process, what was that like? Did that feel really, really, really weird or boring or difficult or easy? I might start with you, Patsy, because you had a whole dog. I feel like that's cheating compared to Gordon, who had a biro.
It was well, it was really lovely. You know, there's this lovely, warm, cuddly, furry brown object, which is fast asleep at present, so I couldn't pick her up to demonstrate. No, it's a very comfortable experience to just look at a dog. I think I find it very comforting and reassuring.
Yeah, and it sounds like you were able to be quite mindful, like you were quite focused on your dog. You weren't really thinking about anything else.
No, that's right.
Lovely. Oh, thank you. Oh, Gordon, how did you get on with your biro?
Well, I better explain first. This is something I've done before, but in a different kind of way. It's something I picked up from Rudolf Steiner's work.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can just, as I say, I can use it to write. I can use it to put in my diary to keep a page open. At the moment, it's acting as a bit of a paperweight. I can throw it at the door if I'm very angry, so you can go on playing with it. I can make me look at another biro, which is on the other side. It's got a place to go. So you can go on indefinitely almost. I could use it, and if I took it out in the garden, using it outside, I could use it as a seed, seed marker where the seeds are being planted.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting, because that's actually an exercise that I sometimes ask people to do, which is to think of the functions of an object. So you've moved on to that, which is great. So it sounds like you were also able to be quite mindful. It sounds like you were pretty focused on your object. Is that fair?
Yes, I would say it's fair. I'm not always very accessible. It's not always accessible to me as a mind.
It's the same with any of us.
I can really focus on something.
Yeah, I mean, we're all the same. Yeah, thank you very much. Mary, you've got a feather.
Yes, this is a feather from a baby bird, which I found in the garden, and I keep it in the kitchen. And having preserved it, I very rarely look at it. So it's a wonderful opportunity to see what I've had there, probably for three months.
It sounds like it was quite a pleasurable experience for you then, a bit like for Patsy.
Oh, definitely.
And I think a feather's quite rich for this exercise, because it's got a really nice texture, hasn't it? There's a lot to look at. And
yes, and part of it is really light and fluffy, and the other's more functional looking.
Yeah.
And I don't know who lost it, but there we are.
Oh, thank you. I think we've got enough time. I'm just going to ask everyone if that's all right. How about you, Ray? What object did you? Oh, you showed us. You had something made by a child.
This is a little child. It's made of plaster of Paris, I think, or something quite hard like that. And I explained to them that I was a hippie once, and this was a child that the child made this for me, and it's full of lumps and bumps, and it's getting a bit grubby now, but it's one of those little possessions that I've always kept kind of nearby me. I can hold it, and it's quite smooth, and it's kind of a strong memory tool as well. So.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? When we do these exercises, I think all of you have, it's impossible to separate the associations and the memory and the meaning of it from the experience, however much. And if you were in therapy, which you're not, that's actually something we'd be asking people to do in DBT, is to just observe and describe and try not to think about the meaning and the history of it, which is really, really hard, actually. But having said that, it sounds like all of you were really, really mindful and not really thinking about anything else, which is amazing. Wow, thank you. David, how about you?
Oh, well, so I'm in some way the exception that breaks the rule. I was definitely noticing the colors of this piece of stone, and then its shape, and the fact that it has a couple of smooth faces to it. And I was mindful of how I'd acquired it, how it had come into my possession. And I was wondering about how it had come to be flat. You know, what's the biological process or geological, or has it been smoothed by humans, and how it acquires its feel and shape? So and I also had the thought that I know that it's slightly radioactive, so there's a, you know, hidden element to it as well.
Okay. I didn't think you were going to say that.
could not help but be aware of those things.
Brilliant. I mean, that's great. So you were really, really focused on the texture and all the different elements, kept bringing yourself back to that. But, you know, your mind was also going off with these questions like, why is it flat? Why is it radioactive? I don't think we were. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, Rosie, you haven't spoken yet, but what object did you have, if you don't mind me asking you?
Yes, so I've got a hazelnut.
Oh.
And it was lovely, you know, feeling it very smooth. But the closer I looked, I realized there were a couple of little scars or dinges in it. And it was lovely and shiny. And I hadn't realized you can't really see it, but there's a very sharp point at the top. So that got me thinking about the parent tree that it came from. And also I was getting excited thinking about the potential for life inside, that if I planted it, I could have an amazing tree and lots of hazelnuts to enjoy. But it was just so nice to have the time to be just thinking about that nut.
That's so lovely. Thank you so much. Christopher, you've got your camera off, but I don't know if you have any kind of object.
You're muted as well. So we don't know if you're there.
I am here, but I was listening rather than taking part. So
Okay. That's completely fine. Okay. That's fine. How about you, Hattie? Did you have an object?
Christopher, do you want to say anything about anything? Oh, right. He's muted again.
Again. That's a no.
Back again. Not really. I can explain what I'm doing. One, it saves the bandwidth. Two, I'm mucking about on the computer, which I think is distracting for people. But I find I need to be doing something, or I shall, as I did last week, although it was fascinating, your talk, I slept through half of it. So yeah. That's what I've been doing. But no, I'm finding it quite interesting because I did CBT, quite a lot of it.
Oh.
And I didn't think it helped me. And in fact, it was somebody else with a different type of therapy that I think, you know, did help me one day. But yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
Different approach. So yeah, right.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, DBT is obviously evolved from that, but thank you also for sharing, because I think it is really difficult to stay awake sometimes. But you know, you could be mindfully sleeping, so that'd be good. Hattie, last but not least.
Yeah, I had a stone as well, David, and I liked your guidance about touch, taste, you know, what sensations, what you're seeing. And the last word I wrote down was listen. Finally, having turned it over, it's small, it's not quite round, it's imperfectly formed, which is so lovely. And it's got streaks in it. You can almost see through it, but not quite. It's not quite round, and it's not quite equal top and bottom. And so I got to thinking about how it had come to form like that over years, and how I went to a beach and picked it up, and I've brought it to such an unnatural house. And finally I dropped it, and you might have heard on the microphone.
No.
I listened to what it sounded like, just being dropped a little way onto different surfaces. So you can see the smile on my face. I really enjoyed that minute. Thank you.
Oh, that's
I tasted it.
Good for you. I was hoping somebody would taste something.
It's still got salty on it.
Right. So I think as well, if you were doing the course, we'd ask you to practice mindfulness every day, just for a minute. And I think you learn what works for you and what doesn't. So for some people, like for you, Patsy, I suspect you'd be doing mindfulness with your dog, because that seems to come really, really naturally. And it's, plus your dog's there. For some, so for me, the strongest sensations are smell and taste, especially smell. So if I'm perhaps quite distracted, or maybe like yourself, Christopher, finding it hard to concentrate, for me, the most powerful mindfulness would be a smell that just brings me back. But it's going to be different for everybody. Some people it's going to be, I don't know, a piece of music, and I think you just have to work out what works for you, really. And obviously some things like David and Hattie have chosen stones, which is lovely because you can easily carry it with you, whereas other people might need, I don't know, fields. I'll go last. So I had an orchid, and I agree with you, it's a pleasure to actually just have that time really to look at it, that sort of legitimate time, and not feel that, you need to be doing billions of other things. And if you looked at it properly, it's different, isn't it, from just glancing at it, really. So I enjoyed it, but orchids don't smell. Excellent. Well, I tell you what, it's very different from working with teenagers. So teenagers tend to initially really struggle with this exercise and they don't like it, but they get better at it. I think I've nearly finished my slides. I can't remember what else I wanted to say to you, actually. So obviously out of these options, we've been doing describe. And I also noticed, like you, Hattie, you said there was a bit of an imperfection, and Rosie, you said there was an imperfection in your acorn, but I don't think it spoiled it for you. So one of the other things we try and teach participants on the DBT course about Wise Mind is to notice without judging. So obviously it's particularly effective if you're talking about another person, rather than sort of start saying, oh, he always does that, or she's always, oh, that's just typical, or well, I knew it because he's an idiot, is to try and just notice, well, I spoke and then he started walking away, or she turned her face away from me, or she did this, or she did this, rather than judging. And it's also true of objects. Like I think it's really interesting that we judge stones, like it's not a good stone, or sometimes you have a choice of objects and everybody wants one that's like shinier than the others. And our minds judge all the time. And that's sort of goes against the sort of concept of mindfulness. The other thing is about being focused, which we've talked about. So obviously you're not my patients, but if you were and you were not able to stay focused, I might ask you a little bit about what, did you notice the sort of feelings that were taking you away from being focused? Did you notice what it was in your mind that was maybe distracting you from the mindfulness task? Because sometimes that can be really helpful to notice that. And finally, there's a really nice sort of concept from DBT is about just do what's effective, do what works. Like if that's working for you, however odd it might seem, just do it, like go with what works. I kind of really like that. So we've had feedback, and I was just going to ask you what you're taking away from this. And it's 12 o'clock. I was asked to speak for 45 minutes, so that's my time up. Thank you very much for having me. And I'll ask you what you're taking away from that, and if there's any other questions.
Sorry, what was the last sentence on your slide?
Thank you for having me.
Oh.
So I obviously I've spoken a lot. I don't know if anybody's got any questions about, so I chose dialectics and mindfulness, but you could ask me anything else as well if you want, if I know the answer. Go on, Hattie.
Earlier on, you were talking about doing some therapy with women, young women and their parents.
Yeah.
You said parents in their own right.
Yeah.
Does that mean they get their own time with you?
That's a really good question. So the protocol that's written for DBT for adolescents is that adolescents sign up for weekly and group sessions for the whole year. How the trials have been studied is that the parents also get their own parent coach. So a parent coach isn't quite the same as a therapist. The parent coach will meet parents probably a bit less frequently, like every 2 to 3 weeks. And the idea of the parent coach is that they make sure that the parents have understood the skills. Even like mindfulness, now that I've taught you, I've had very educated middle class people who just don't really get it, who've never done one thing at a time, who don't particularly want to sit for a minute a day and observe and describe because they think you're a bit bonkers. And it's actually, it's an essential skill. Like if you're going to be on the course, you have to learn how to do this. So you might need the parent coach to, we work in home, so you might need the parent coach to go to the parent's home and just make sure that they've understood the skill. But it's not really therapy. So sometimes it becomes a bit like therapy because a mum or a dad might start saying, well, this reminds me of stuff that happened to me when I was young, or, you know, I've always had a problem with anger or whatever. But you kind of try and go away from that because it's not really therapy, but you do need the parents to understand the skills, because the trials have shown that for younger people, people under 18 who are still living at home, that if they learn the skills, like how to think dialectically, for instance, but the parents don't, then it won't be as effective as if the parents have learnt it as well. So it's a very expensive program, but it works. It works. And these are young people who, if you don't treat them young, this is the cohort of people who are going to keep representing.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, yeah. So they're going to be in the kind of residential school that Ray was talking about. They're going to be offenders. They're going to be victims and perpetrators of crime. They're going to be long-term, you know, young women who we see with self-harm in A&E again and again and again. So it's an expensive intervention, but if it works in the long term, it's been shown to be cost effective. That was a good question. Any other questions?
I wish I had some times when the parents could be dealt with alongside the child, because I found it's in a lot of cases that their chaotic thought and chaotic behavior is learned behavior from being at home with their parents. And so I think the idea of having parents understand that as well it's wonderful. And why didn't we have it before, please?
Who knew that you had to work with the parents? Yeah. I know. And I think what I like about the program is it's quite unjudgmental. So I think because obviously parents can be very, understandably, they're defensive and it's very private, isn't it? You working with their child. But if you just say, right, your son signed up for the protocol, you know, we're doing it, we start next week. And what this means is one of you or both of you has to come as well. And if they say we can't, then you go, well, then your son can't join. You know, it's really straightforward. It's not judgment. It's not because I think you're a particularly appalling or particularly wonderful parent. It's just, that's the deal. And most parents come, you know, some enjoy it more than others. Yeah. Oh, Harriet's got another question.
Oh, well, I could do, but I was just thinking, you know, that's like a language, isn't it? You know, it's a behavior language. So yes. It's like the recent films and television programs and discussions about being deaf and parents not being at all supported to learn sign language, both by the profession and financially. They don't get any free education to learn that language to communicate with their child. And this behavior is communicated parent to child, and generation after generation. So anyway, that was just an observation I was making. But I
think that's a really good analogy, actually, that if parents don't learn British Sign Language, you know, how can you really say that you're validating your child if you can't even communicate with them? I think you're really right. Yeah.
I'm going to go and see the film called Name Me Cadam.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it.
And this is an example where he couldn't get therapy at all in Iraq, and when he came to the UK, there he is. He's a real person because he's got the right language. Anyway, enough of that.
Could we have the name of that film again, please?
It was on the Watershed showing last night.
Right.
It's about a Kurdish boy, age 5, deaf, and somebody found him and brought him to Derby Deaf School. It's called Name Me Cadam, K-A. It's a 6-letter word, 6-letter name. Let me have a look at what I've looked up recently.
Between us, we'll get there.
It's on the watershed.
It was. Last night was last night.
Yeah.
But hang on a minute. I know. I've made a note in my diary to book for it.
Right.
Lawand, Lawand.
How do you spell it? L-A-W.
No, we could.
Lawand, Lawand, Lawand.
Okay.
There we go. Any other questions?
Name me Lawand.
Yeah.
Do you see this, as you say, it's a new therapy, recently new therapy. Do you see this developing, or will it become part of the panoply of other developments which are kind of over there type of thing?
No, it is developing actually. It's already funded in huge parts of the UK, especially in Wales, in fact, because quite a few DBT practitioners have sort of landed in Wales, and then they've taught other people. No, it is. I think it is going to massively catch on. Yeah, definitely. I think. Yeah.
The CBD did very well in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that some of you've said that you've had like you, Christopher, said that you'd had CBT and you hadn't found it helpful, and that's obviously not it's not like one size fits all, like everything's. Also, I think Gordon had a positive experience with psychodynamic therapy, whereas Hattie didn't. I mean, that's fine. I'm not trying to sell it really. I just thought I'd tell you something that was new. But it's about the goodness of fit, isn't it, between what it is that the person needs at that time and what the therapy is. But it's also about the therapist, because it's ultimately it's a relationship, isn't it? And you could find somebody who is doing and saying all the right things, but the bottom of the line is you just don't really like them.
I had
yeah.
I had very good experiences with Eric Byrne and transactional analysis, which helped me enormous amounts, and so I became quite a campaigner for it, and spent a number of years working in that field. So
right, yeah.
What gets you through the night, as the phrase goes.
Definitely, and we learn from each other as well. Yeah. Were you going to ask something, Christopher?
Yeah, I was just wondering. I mean. Are there any kind of simple books on it that you could recommend? Perhaps, would you mind sending a list of one or two to Patsy, and then she could distribute them to the group?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, if you just Google dialectical behavior therapy, and you can order the first guide that pops
yes, but you see, I can't even spell it, let alone send the
I will I'll just write it for you quickly. But yeah, it's really, because it's new, it's really easy to find. So it's this thing about dialectical, like we were talking about, how two opposites can both be true, and then it's about behavior, because it's about changing people's behavior, and then it's a therapy. So that's it. It's DBT. But yeah, no, I can certainly I can send you a link. Presumably you want to read about adults rather than children. So
I don't know. I mean, I was a child once. And I might be again sometime soon, but
sure. Any other questions?
Right.
Well, I have one or two friends who are really in pickles, and I've known people with borderline personality disorder, and all the time one feels, oh God, if only, I'm sure I could help this person. If I feel like this is another way of describing and experiencing and expressing. I mean, having a structured therapy seems to me like, I mean, just for 1 year, that, you know, that's not very long. And it is time enough to practice when you've got guidance and you're being asked to do it and you're being contacted twice a week and you're being expected to do stuff between times and you've got a focus and a way of doing it. I do think that's wonderful. And I mean, when you see whatever it's called on television about the nanny, Wonder Nanny, who goes into people's houses. Yeah. Super Nanny. And I mean, but she's got to be there in the home when the parents or when the child is actually doing that behavior and say, that's it. That's what we're talking about. Can you do it this way, that way? I mean, wow.
Yeah. No, it is a bit similar to Super Nanny, actually, except that it's real. Because Super Nanny is just like, it's, you know, 2 sessions or whatever, isn't it? Ta-da! And then the child's changed forever, which I
doubt it, but they've got to practice it. They've got to practice it and carry on.
Exactly. Yeah. But the B in it, the DPT, the B in it is the behavioural principles are actually really the same as is used in Super Nanny, because that's what works. You know, so you I don't want to give another talk, but you try and reinforce behaviour that you want. So you catch the person doing what you want. Like even I was trying to do that with you in terms of when you were feeding back your mindfulness and how well you were concentrating. I was trying really hard to reinforce that and to disattend to the bits where you said I wasn't really concentrating, which is just a really, really simple snippet, but that's exactly how you'd work. Yeah. Lovely. Great. Well, it's been really, really nice to meet you all. And what a diverse group you are. And it's a privilege to speak with you. And I hope you enjoyed your 1-minute mindfulness.
Thank you, Bea, for coming also. You know, so we have, as you say, we have lots of things going on. And if you wanted to see some of those type of things, if you speak to David, he could give you the link to some of their talks, which you might find interesting, amusing, or thinking, don't want to ever see that again.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you've got quite a catalogue by now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, and
Thank you, Bea.
I should assume you're very busy most of the week.
I'm pretty busy, yeah. Oh, nice to meet you again. Love to see you, Mary. And thank you, Patsy, for hosting. And maybe see you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Bea. And just to say, the link to all the talks is actually under in the description to all the talks. So somebody normally says what talk we're going to have next week. So I'm prompting somebody to do.
That's Bea.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is me, and it is Jenny Smith. Learning how bureaucracy and control stays in Westminster. That's, tell your friends. It could be an interesting one. But apart from that, I will see you all, good friends.
Can I share that link with my goddaughter, who is she's working about the east-west train link between Oxford and Cambridge, and that's been so-called on the cards since 2000. So it's a really political hot potato still.
Yeah, do. I'm sure we won't mind at all. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Goodbye.